Did you know that you can create an arrangement without any mechanics at all? So no floral foam, no wire netting, no angel hair, no plastic tubes, nothing at all. If you want to learn how to make an arrangement without any mechanics at all, then keep watching today's video. Well, spring is definitely in the air today. It's a fantastic, glorious day here in South Wales, which is quite different from the days that I normally describe to you. I'm sure, like me, you get fed up of me discussing the rain. So today the sun is shining, it is springtime, and I've got some gorgeous seasonal flowers, as well as some garden material to create a really exciting design. And today, I've got a new container. Look at that. Now, this is another one of my fabulous charity shop finds. This is definitely fabulous and gorgeous. It's a creamy, almost like a mother of pearl. There's lots of different pink shades within the container itself, and I think this is absolutely gorgeous. And I only paid, wait for it, £2. What a bargain. Disappointingly, I did have a really pretty vase at home, similar to this. Not quite such a good label, because this is a very good brand, very good make, so it's probably worth quite a lot of money. I did have another one at home with a heavy pattern on the front of roses, and I dropped it on the floor this morning. So I'm not very happy with myself, but I'll work with this one instead. So the colour combination that I've got, hopefully will pick up on the colours of my base. I'm going to do a design that doesn't use any form of mechanics. Lots of people I know fret that they can't get hold of wire netting, they don't know what chicken wire is, they don't know how to use it, and obviously many people are moving away from completely using floral foam and are looking for something that's more environmentally friendly. So today I'm going to do an arrangement that just uses foliage as a base, gives you a structure at the bottom to hold your flowers into place. I often think that with the invention of floral foam, we became very structured, patterned, heavily formal with our floral designs, and there is that trend now for designs to be much looser and much more casual, and I'm going to show you how you can do that without using wire netting and without using floral foam. So with this style of arranging, you do really need to have lots of pieces of greenery that are quite bulky. So if you're lucky enough to have a garden, then you're going to be looking at things like hebes, heathers, pittosporum, camellia, anything that's bunchy as opposed to flat, because flat flowers or flat foliages aren't going to support your flowers. So I'm going to start initially with some pieces of heather. Now these aren't fantastic pieces of heather, but what I'm looking to do is cut them quite short and get them low down into the container, and these are going to act almost like a block of foam or a piece of wire netting. They're going to be like the structure that's going to hold my flowers into position. It's like a base layer, like a core structure that's going to support your flowers. So really all I'm doing is creating like a cushion at the bottom. This one is a little bit longer, so that I think will work coming out towards the side. These are maybe a little bit long and straggly, but I'm not going to worry, because you might be in the same position as me at home and you might not have any perfectly matching pieces of greenery. So these are almost like the offcuts of heather that are left from classes that I've done here in the week. And if you haven't got heather, you could use gypsophilia from the supermarket, or if you're in the season where you have hydrangeas, one big hydrangea like that at the bottom, or maybe two on either side, act like a support network to hold your flowers into position. And really all I've done is spread that colour and texture all throughout the bottom. This is the type of arrangement that's pretty much going to speak for itself. I'm not going to create any formal shape. It's probably going to be very similar to a crescent, because it's going to rest on the outside of my container, and that boat-shaped container naturally lends itself to a crescent shaped arrangement. But you could do a formal mass of flowers in the middle. If you've got soft stem flowers in the garden at the moment, you might have daffodils or tulips coming through if you're in the spring. You could just do a really close display of flowers in the middle, but I'm going to come up more in that crescent shape And if you've been following me for a while, you'll know it's a style that I absolutely love. And if you're not following me, then it's about time you are. Hit the subscribe button, it doesn't cost anything. Hit the notification button to be told every time I upload a new tutorial, and then you won't miss anything. And if you are new to floral design, there are some PDF documents that you can buy on the website that give you some care and conditioning techniques. And there's a free downloadable guide that'll be linked in the description box as well, which discusses in basic form the elements and principles of design. And they're the rules and the guidelines that we use. So if you're not familiar with them, look in that box below and you'll find a link. The basic elements and principles guide is totally free, but there is a more in-depth one that you can also buy from the website should you be training as a florist or a college studying floral design. Now this vintage container is a mantle vase, and these would have been used on the mantelpiece in beautiful homes in bygone eras, and flowers from the garden would have been arranged really beautifully in them. And I'm going to do it as a front-facing design, although it's quite trendy at the moment for this style of container to be used as a table centre, in which case the design will be done with a back to it as well. So if it's in the centre of a table, everybody's got something really exciting to look at. Now I'm just bulking out the base with some pieces of eucalyptus. This has come from my garden. It's a little bit on the raggedy side. We've cut it back in the spring just to create a bit of extra growth, but it's going to work really nicely to create that compact and dense look that I want there at the bottom. Remember, when you're arranging straight into water, you need to have flower food in the water. The water needs to be about 2/3 of the way up on the container, and the stems need to be clean on the bottom so that you don't contaminate the water itself. Now this final piece of eucalyptus happens to have a nice curve to it, and I think it's going to sit nicely on this side here. Now the beauty of arranging without mechanics is that you can take flowers out, rearrange them and put them back in if you don't like the position they're in. And when you're arranging like this, don't worry that initially things move around and don't stay in a position that you've put them. As you add more stems, they interlock at the base and they'll hold one another in, and you'll end up with a gorgeous design. So 2 different types of material. I've got the heather and I've got some eucalyptus, and that is really nicely compact in there, which will hold my flowers into place. My first flower type that I'm going to add in is the amazing Hellebore. Now this was the nearest colour that I could get to link with my container. The container has a more creamy look, but I wanted to go with some quite natural seasonal flowers to start with. And what you'll see with this Hellebore is it works much nicer in the arrangement leaning that way than it does in that position there. And Hellebores are soft stem. If you've not worked with Hellebores before, they work better with a knife than cutting with the scissors, because the scissors is quite heavy and it tends to crush and damage the stem. So I'm going to work today with a knife, but it does take a little bit of practice to get used to working with a knife. Again, if we look at this one, it's angled really nicely to the left, so that's where I'm going to put it in the arrangement. And if you are arranging soft stem flowers into floral foam, you've got to cut them straight, not at an angle. You can cut at an angle when it goes into water, but if you're using foam and any soft stem flower, you're reducing the strength of the bottom of the stem and it's hard to push it into the foam. Today I'm going to cut it at an angle because we're going into water. And then I've picked myself 4 stems. That one I think again is going to work nicely. And what you really need to consider when you're arranging in a natural way is to look at the flowers. Which way are they growing? Which way are they angled? We can't force anything to come down over the front of the container if it's not naturally growing that way, but we can look at the stems and shape our arrangement around the natural way that stem is growing. And this one I'm going to use tucked in here, so it starts to give me a little bit of height, and also it leans down over the side. Now I'm anticipating these flowers are going to move around because they're not held in by any mechanic, but I'm not going to panic because I just rearrange them as I go along. take a deep breath, relax and enjoy what you're doing. Don't stress about it. So that's the Hellebore. They're right down in the water. I will top that water up at the end of the video as well to make sure that any shorter stems have access to the water. But without using any type of mechanic, those flowers are stable because they're all knitted in to that lovely base structure that I created. Now I'm working towards the center, and my next flower, look at that. That's a Ranunculus, and it's a springtime flower. If you've got a local grower near you, they might have them already growing in polytunnels. And what I'm going to do here is start with the bigger heads more towards the center because that's a little bit more pleasing to the eye. And I'm going to use my knife just to cut the stems to the right length. Now, one mistake I quite often make when I'm arranging into wire netting or just water, that colour is just amazing, is I sometimes cut the flower stem too short. And that's because we're used to working with the excess amount of floral foam, and you know that the foam is raised slightly above the container. But I need to get my stems all the way down there to the bottom, so don't cut your flowers too short. So this one is a bigger head, and I'm aiming the bigger heads towards the middle because that's where your focal point is. I've cut that. It's a little bit too tall for where I want it to go. So I'm going to cut it down a bit shorter, and that's a far easier way to work. You don't want to chop the flower stem off and then realise it's too short. So start a little bit longer and work your way down. And what we don't want to do here, you've guessed it, is have those two eyes, those big googly eyes staring at you. So I've slightly offset them, but as I build up, I can spread out the colour either side. Right, so let's take a little look at what's left, see which way they are naturally growing. I've left some of the buds on because that's going to create some interest, and I'm going to work my way out. It's a really pleasant design. The Ranunculus have slightly different shades to them, so some are more pink, some are a little bit more apricot. Because I've got a bit of a taller stem over this side with that Hellebore, I'm just going to move it more forward. I'm anticipating that I'm going to raise up this side with some of my greenery, but it's far better to work towards the centre first, get all your flowers in at the base, and then work towards the outside. Now, you might not be able to see that one from the front of the camera, but that gives me recession. That helps to draw your eye down to the base and give that three-dimensional effect. And then I'm going to raise the height slightly on one side. Again, I'm not going to panic. If it doesn't stay where it wants to go, the more flowers I add, the more greenery I put in as I build up the design will help support that one. And I know from feedback I get, messages, emails and everything, that many people really struggle working with this type of design because you want this flower to stay perfectly where you put it, and that isn't going to happen. Don't worry about it. I think that is absolutely beautiful. Now, the flowers that I've got in this arrangement could be classed as locally grown. They haven't come from a local flower farm, but I'm now going to introduce this really lovely spray carnation, a colour that I've not used before, which definitely hasn't been grown in the UK. But if you are somebody that's looking to create more sustainable designs, then there's a good chance that what's in the arrangement at the moment you could buy from a British grower. So what I'm going to start to do with the spray carnations is just extend the height up on either side. I'm going to look again to see which ones have a nice shape to them. I don't quite want 3 heads all on the end because it's a bit messy and a bit confusing. So I'm just going to take one head off. Spray carnations don't need to be cut with a knife. It just happens to be that I've got it in my hand. And what I'm going to do is extend that height up on either side. And then with the shorter spray carnations, I can feed them through the front. Now, I am adding lots of flowers in here at the front, and what eventually will happen is the weight of all these flowers will pull forward and the design will fall apart. So all the little bits that I'm cutting off, all the little offshoots, I'm going to add in at the back because that will help counterbalance all the flower weight that's at the front. And I can add in some heavier greenery if needed. But balance is really important. actual balance and visual balance. Actual balance stops the design falling over, and visual balance makes sure that the colours are evenly spread throughout. Now, if that doesn't give you a period feel, a romantic mansion house look, then I don't know what will. And what I'm going to do then with the stem that's left, I'm going to cut it down into shorter pieces and work the colour and that texture of flower towards the front. So if you've got it on the sides, if you've got it high up on the side, you can't just put it in there like those big wings on either side. You've got to connect it like joining the dots together at the front, so that the texture and the colour is brought all the way through from one side to the other. And that's a common feature in a traditional arrangement. It's not necessarily symmetrical, it's balanced on either side. I don't have flowers that match on either side, but the colour is evenly distributed from one side to the other. And you'll see that without any floral foam, without any wire netting, I've got a really lovely design. I did have some fantastic camellia to use, and I don't know if I'm going to need it because everything is really neatly supported in there. But now, to extend the height slightly higher and to add to that springtime feel, I've got some amazing little catkins, and I foraged for these this morning on my drive in. The colour link with the container is really lovely. And to make the most of those pretty tendrils that are dangling downwards, I'm going to add them towards the outside. What we really don't want to do when you've got such a textural flower, something that's got a lot of interest to it like that, is to squash it down really low in the arrangement, because then you don't see it and you don't appreciate it. So why go to the time and the effort of choosing these beautiful flowers with lots of interest, lots of texture and colour, and then you completely bury them and you can't see them and you can't appreciate what you've got. So a few little tendrils on either side, that to me is just stunning. I so love that style. And you're so lucky today because I've picked something from the garden that I don't think I've used a great deal of, because it's very precious for me, and it is now starting to come tall enough that I can cut it. Look at that. Now, some of you might already have this in the garden, and do you know what? The name of it has gone completely from my head. I know the second part is myrtle or myrtus. It's something like Lophomyrtus. I'll have to Google it later and I'll add it to the notes at the bottom. But what I'm going to do with this is extend the height out slightly, and the colour of this alongside those peachy pink colour Hellebores and spray carnation is just absolutely amazing. That's not much good, is it? I've completely missed the container. Try that again. I'm concentrating so much on talking. So the colour of this is, done it again. The colour on this is just amazing. And this is what I mean when I say tints, tones and shades of one colour. So we've started off with a pinky apricot, and then I've looked for darker shades and lighter shades to complement it. I'm thinking that even though these little offcuts are quite short, they would look nice tucked down from the front to give me that nice colour link. But of course I've got to remember that they need to be long enough to get down to the water in the bottom. Look at those, aren't they just amazing? So it's a slow growing shrub, unfortunately. It's been in my garden for a little while. The garden is looking really sad at the moment. It's that time of the year where there's not really anything coming through. We've just got to be a bit patient. But I have planted some seeds this week, so that's quite an exciting activity. So that's where we're up to at the moment. I'm going to put these little offshoots again in at the back. That's going to help bring some depth into the arrangement and create some actual balance. And to finish off, I've got a beautiful Salix. So this is one of the willows, and it has that amazing pink tone to it. Now again, the variety name of this has gone from my head, but you can buy this as a shrub to grow if you're in the UK. I'm sure you can get it in Europe as well, but obviously you need a similar climate to me here in the UK. And I've imported this one. This has come from the flower auctions, but I knew the colour was going to go so well with this style, and I am cutting off the end bits because they're not particularly attractive. And with a little bit of playing around, a little bit of encouragement, you can get these to curve nicely. But you might have ordinary Salix in the garden. It doesn't have to be this particular variety. And what I'm going to do, I haven't picked myself a very nice shape, but I want to go slightly taller on one side, and it was going to be the other side when I started. So that shows you how an arrangement evolves and how when you leave the material speak for itself, you get a shape that you maybe aren't expecting. Now I really dislike that. That just looks like a big clenched hands on the top. So I'm going to come back in a minute with a better shape because I'm not using that one. So I found myself a much better shape. What I'm going to do with that one, I'm going to gently now twist it out of the arrangement so nothing else comes out with it. What I'm going to do with this one is cut off that top section, which is a little bit confusing and a bit messy. That can come lower down. That can be used in an arrangement where I want a tall straight piece. But I found myself a more curved piece, and that is going to fit in the side there. So it's more asymmetrical, it's taller on one side. There is space in amongst the flowers so that you can really appreciate everything. And to me, that's a really good traditional historic design. And that strange piece that I cut off at the top can come in more towards the front here, just alongside that pretty Hellebore. And I think that is just a stunning arrangement. The colour combination is just perfect. I would like to do a chef's kiss at that point, but that's a bit naff. I know this one is going to be really popular with those of you that don't like using floral foam, and it's a good starting point for anybody that wants to arrange without any floral foam in an attempt to be more environmentally friendly. So thank you as ever. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. I've got a private Facebook group called Sharon's Innovations Group. If you want to meet me over on there, anybody's welcome to join. Don't forget that free downloadable document that you'll find listed in the description box. I look forward to seeing you next time for another design. See you soon.